After swindling Martha and her sister, Hoch regained any confidence that may have been shaken after he married Minnie, who was trying to swindle him, and decided to head west for California. This is Tomb Snoopers. Welcome once again to Tomb Snoopers. I'm Adam Selzer.
I'm Patty Vasquez.
We are making our way through the story of Johann Hoch. Patty, how have you been since we last recorded?
I've been thinking about this story. I'm good, but I'm interested to see where this story takes us. But other than that, I'm enjoying the last days of summer. I know that this is a podcast, and I probably
we're a few weeks in the past now.
I know.
Yeah. For those of you not from around here, temporarily speaking, it's Chicago is finally experiencing a burst of temperatures in the 70s.
It's gorgeous.
I'm loving this. I could do that. These 90-degree days, I just can't do it.
It was too muggy, too. Plus, we had that corn sweat period.
Right.
So, if you know what corn sweat is, go ahead and Google it.
Oh, yeah. All right, so we're working our way through here, and since we last recorded, I also did get copies of my Hoch book arrived in the mail. They were sent in from the publisher. It's out in late September. We'll have links all over the place. It'll drive you crazy with those. And, of course, 80% of being an author today is hassling people to write reviews of your book and post them online. Star ratings are just everything. This drives me nuts. I hate bugging people for reviews. But please, if you like this podcast, please.
Tell everyone.
Tell everyone.
If you don't tell anyone. Keep your mouth shut.
But I am very pleased with how the book came out. They did a good job with the illustrations, it looks like. I haven't dared to actually read it. But so, yeah, they put all the pictures in that I wanted, and there's a lot of places where we just use the whole headlines or a whole excerpt of a newspaper, because newspapers are such a big part of the story when it comes to Johann Hoch. It's where so much of the data is. Luckily, we can back up a lot of this data with things like legal records.
Right.
It's always tricky. In newspapers are better sources than people think, especially if you're getting one where the reporter was actually on the ground at the time. But sometimes that reporter's just writing down notes in a pad, calling it into the rewrite guy. The rewrite guy passes it off to the typesetter guy, and things do get lost in translation. And really, they're just often reporting the best gossip they can get of the day. So it's nice when we have things like property records, marriage records, and stuff that'll actually verify the dates that they're putting in these articles. So.
And the photos are amazing. I mean, I love this. One of the one of the brides.
Yep.
That
would be Marie, his last Chicago victim.
Yeah,
and a picture of her grave being dug up right beside it.
Yeah, that's wild, man.
So yeah, the newspapers were very diligent by 1905, and it's interesting watching. You can sort of watch the progress of them over the course of this. Hoch was active in the U.S. between 1895 and 1906, and in getting the articles as it goes, you can really watch the stories unfold, watch the progress of the press. Because in 1896, they're still not using photographs in newspapers; they're still using drawings of photographs.
Sure.
Now and then somebody would put a photograph, but not very commonly. But then suddenly in the turn of the 20th century, papers are putting lots of photos. And by the time Hoch is captured in 1905, the photographs and graphics are like a new toy that newspapers just couldn't wait to use as much as they could. Some of them were still sticking with all text stuff, and the difference in reliability, there's not really a lot of difference in reliability. I don't really find that among the different papers there's one that was more consistently reliable about Hoch than others. It's more the differences in tone.
Right.
Like the more tabloidy papers were prone to push the sensationalism. Yeah, this picture there where they've kind of made a mock-up of Hoch's Jekyll and Hyde nature. One of him standing there looking normal, another where he's got his arms all spread out and grinning.
That is fascinating.
Yeah,
right?
that's the one I put on a T-shirt that you can get on for Mysterious Chicago Tours that says there's only one way to Hoch.
I just love the early photoshopping.
You can definitely see that they're pasting heads onto drawn bodies. Most people probably would have been aware of that, but again, it's not really clear how savvy people were about it. They weren't secretive, right. But some people might have actually seen these clearly drawn bodies and a photograph pasted on top of it and thought that was for real.
Mm-hmm. Man, and then this one too. There's a drawing of him, and then pictures of the women
surrounded by. Well, there's Evelyn Campbell, the reporter, who kind of helped really crack the story. Then a bunch of pictures of his wives, at least one of whom was not real. We're actually going to come to her. There's one, Mrs. Pratt, it mentions there, who was the biggest brothel keeper in Ottumwa, Iowa. and
I've been to Ottumwa, of all places.
Yeah, I mean, I guess somebody has to be the biggest man.
I did stand-up comedy there. It was lovely,
Yeah, it's the video game capital of the world at one point.
Or
they had like a big video game championship in the early 80s.
Oh, too
and
funny.
we're still milking it for years. Yeah. I grew up in Iowa. I mostly remember it from in Ottumwa, turn to channel so-and-so for a better reception of TV8. And my mom saying Ottumwa is the armpit of Iowa. I don't know what she had against Ottumwa, or if she'd ever even been there.
The comedy club, and it wasn't even a club; it was a bar. You know, in the '90s, they would just put a microphone on any dance floor or the front of any pub, and it was right by a train station. So we would intermittently be interrupted by passing freight trains. At any rate.
That tracks.
Yep.
So, passing freight trains out of town. Well, speaking of hopping a train out of town, so when we last wrapped up the last episode, we had just talked about Hoch and Martha Herefeld, or Hersfeld, the woman who lived right about where the Portillo's is now.
Oh, right.
And he robbed her and her sister, said, I'm just going to the store to get something to read on the ship to Germany, and then never came back from the store. That old story. And Martha went on to marry a much richer guy than him after she moved to California. But there's a good Oscar Wilde quote from this era that everybody who has ever gone missing is rumored to be in San Francisco.
Oh, really?
Which is where Hoch went. Instead of going back from the store, he went to San Francisco. He left Martha sometime around August of 1896. Then at the end of that same month, there are these newspaper articles from the various San Francisco papers about a woman who had just been deserted. And there's even some good drawings of her. Mrs. Barbara Bossert. This is from the San Francisco Bulletin from August 27th, 1896. And this is repeated in several other papers around the same time. The headline is, She Lost Jacob and Her Money. A man had come to town by the name of Jacob Schmidt, which was Hoch's real name. He'd already abandoned using Johann Hoch that he'd used for 3 marriages in Chicago. Then started using his real name once he got to San Francisco. I guess he figured he was far enough away. Sure. It was a common enough name. So he got there, took up a residence at a boarding house, at one point proposed to the landlady there.
Oh, golly. That's one way to avoid paying your fees.
But somehow, I think it was a matrimonial ad that he met this woman, Barbara Bossert. You can see a picture of her. She's roughly middle-aged. She had a young child at the time, a son, who I think was 6 or 7, and met up with her, chatted for a bit, and then said they had a whole sob story about how his wife and children had died in Chicago, or he'd lost all his money in Chicago. And this was one he would return to. He would often tell the story that I saw my son hit by a train and we cremated him in Graceland Cemetery. And he recycled this a few different times.
You may as well bring in the violin and some hankies, I guess.
Yeah. So he tells her the whole story, chats with her a little bit over a drink, and then says, all right, I'm ready to marry you right now.
Sure.
And she said, I can't marry you right now. It's Friday. That's bad luck.
Oh.
So that she waited till the next day to get married.
She probably should have gone with Friday. Maybe she would have gotten
maybe. So, but the next, right after the wedding, she gives him a surprise good news. I'm not poor. I have $1,600 in coins. It's over here in this satchel. And she thought that he'd be thrilled to find out that she had all this money, but instead he started scolding her, saying, you're just keeping all of this cash lying around. If anybody knew that you had this here, they'd come and murder both of us to get it. And she got very apologetic and said, please take it to the German savings bank and deposit it in my name.
Poor lady.
That was an easy one for him. He said, okay, I'll take your money to the bank. And instead went back to his boarding house and proposed to the landlady. She said no, so he just took the money, left his trunk there, and got out of town. Now, later, the landlady would root through the trunk and find a really nice umbrella, and then find out that the umbrella handle had a hidden dagger. You could pull the handle out, there was a dagger in there. This came out years later, like 10 years later, when Hoch started making leaking all of the papers, they tracked down this landlady, talked to Barbara's son, who said that she had died by then. I couldn't find good data about her death, but it said she had died a couple of years ago. The son said that she always kept hoping that this guy, Jacob Schmidt, would come back and love her. And
she wasn't
even died of a broken heart. This doesn't go along with what she was saying at the time. A lot of these newspapers interviewed her, and, well, she was a Bavarian woman herself, and she said, well, he's just like all the Germans. They're all the same. They're all bad.
Oh, dear.
But apparently, according to her son, and some of the articles written years later might have been flowering it up a little bit, but they talked about the son vowing revenge and dropping out of school to practice his pistol work so he could go find this Jacob Schmidt character and get revenge. But they did show the umbrella handle too, or at least what they said was the umbrella handle.
Was this something that was kind of common at the time, to have a dagger in your umbrella handle?
I think you could buy them. I mean,
Okay.
you probably still can.
Sure.
You can still buy canes that hide all kinds of crazy things.
A nice big sword. Wow.
I don't know how common it was, but he seemed to have had a thing for canes at the time. So this would have been August of 1896. It was like a 2-day marriage. He took all the money and just ran off, and then went from there to Cincinnati. So he's hopping back to the Midwest. Hey, Miles the cat's coming in. We're trying to keep him from jumping onto the microphone. If you've watched my live streams, of course, Miles is famous. He's the mysterious Chicago logo is him in a bowler hat wearing my white glasses.
I'll try to keep him occupied with some chin scratches over here.
And he's notorious for jumping up on the computer, so we have to watch out for that. And now he's got a new roommate, baby Ember, who is also very prone to jumping up on the table when I'm here, whether I'm eating, whether I'm doing work. I haven't trained her not to do that yet.
Are you teaching bad habits, Miles?
Yeah, he's being a bad example. So we get to San Francisco. Now, I think like the Barbara story gets like a paragraph in the book. Martha Herefeld gets 2 or 3 paragraphs because I just didn't have room for all of his stuff. But he showed up still under the name Jacob Schmidt in Cincinnati, and this is a story that would be rewritten many times. There were a lot of Ohio papers, a lot of Cincinnati papers and nearby papers that were able to interview neighbors and find pictures of him. And in Cincinnati, everybody talked about him being a very pompous gentleman. And we could see, I don't think he knew Barbara long enough for her to get any kind of personality on him. But when he was with Martha back in Chicago in early 1896, everybody remembered him as a very pious, very religious man who was always singing hymns. Presumably that's the kind of guy that Martha was looking for. But when he got to Cincinnati, everybody called him this pious guy who walked around wearing a top hat and carrying this diamond-handled cane.
Oh, dear.
That he would say that you had a hidden compartment in it that he used for smuggling diamonds. And this is like an ongoing thing. Like, there's a lot of stories about Hoch being involved in some kind of shady diamond deals that never quite get resolved or never quite gets explained. But it pops up, like, throughout his story. I think he just liked to tell people that he was in some kind of a diamond smuggling operation just because that gave him this air of mystery.
Right.
It made him fascinating. It's the same way the stories about being on recent shipwrecks made him fascinating. So everybody remember this pompous, overbearing guy. One day he came into a saloon, looked around a grocery store in a building and said, wow, whoever owns this building must have a lot of money. And the guy who was working the place and leasing it said, oh, it's owned by Mrs. Clara. You should go talk to her. Oh, here comes Miles. It turns out there was this woman named Clara Bartles in town. She had recently, her husband Heinrich had been about twice her age. And he had passed away, leaving her a big building on McMicken Avenue, leaving her a grocery store that she leased out, lots of money and property. And so this pompous guy immediately introduced himself to Clara, and within a couple of weeks she was telling friends, I've got a secret, it's too good to keep. I am going to be married to this handsome, handsome man. And we've seen pictures of the guy. He looks like the guy in the Pringles can. But in this case, the pictures of him from Cincinnati show him with like mutton chop sideburns and like his nose up in the air.
Sure.
And there's not a picture of him wearing the top hat, but apparently he was wearing a top hat and silk shirts. I guess this is the kind of person Clara was looking for. She probably would have been if she was that well-to-do herself. It kind of stands to reason that she probably would have been looking for somebody who wasn't just after her money. So having this air of money himself, Miles, still hopping on, make sure he didn't just knock the microphone off. So it looks like we're still okay.
So he would, as you mentioned, adorn himself in the trappings of what would be appealing, depending on the target.
Yeah, and some of her friends said that they had their doubts about this guy right from the start, but she just wouldn't hear any of it. So he married her. We've got the marriage certificate here. It's October of 1896, Jacob Schmidt to Clara Bartels. 7 October 1896. So he's back using his real name here. And they were just married, it looks like, in Hamilton County by like a justice of the peace. I think there was some stories about him having like a grand wedding or a wedding supper at least. So then, January, 3 months later, Clara has a will filed. And
well, at least he gave her 3 months.
Yeah, he gave her a few months, and then she was getting sick. We've got also Clara Schmidt this day, Jacob Schmidt, husband, Lake County, to this county. So, on January 15th, within a couple of weeks of the will being filed, she died. She had been sick for quite a while. Neighbors didn't think it was serious at first. They're like, one day late at night, they saw her walking out to the pump to get a drink. But then, shortly thereafter, that next morning, she passed away. And everybody was also kind of shocked that Hoch was like helping them roll the body over when the undertakers came in, like was telling them make haste, and showing them all the liquor he had. He got the undertakers really good and drunk in the process here. Then went out, bought her a cemetery plot, and they said, hey, there's the cheap ones and there's the nice ones. And he bought one of the nice ones. Okay. And they said, well, why don't you buy one for yourself too? And he said, oh, who knows where I'll be in the future. But he made a big show about telling everybody, didn't I put on a grand funeral for my wife? Look how much money I spent on this. The undertakers would remember this case very clearly, partly because it seemed so weird how he was acting, and also because he never actually paid the bill.
Oh, wow. So no wonder he wanted the fancier trappings of it.
Yeah, he left them with a very large bill for this. And after that, there's a couple of month period where he just was living around Cincinnati and entertaining other women. People would say that there was one of them who had a lot of money, but Hoch seemed kind of afraid of her. Or Schmidt seemed kind of afraid of her. There's not a lot of data about that, but he would also see there was like a woman who would be sitting on his lap now and then. These were brazen overtures for 1897, for early 1897. But eventually he met Maria Duss, or possibly it's pronounced Dess, D-O-E-S-S. I'm never sure how to pronounce these things. Sure. And if I ask somebody who spells their name that way now, it's not really going to clear up how this person would have pronounced it themselves. But he met Maria, who was running the saloon in the building that Hoch now owned because he had inherited it. Though eventually her relatives would file suits in this. He didn't end up getting that much out of it. Really, when he ended up leaving, it was just whatever cash he could carry with him. I think a lot ended up going into receivership. And this is one point where I would kind of like to go to Ohio and get the actual files, because I know that there's probably stuff there's probably a good probate record here. There's probably lawsuits against him in the legal archives. Now, legal archives, I work in Chicago quite a bit. We can get like paperwork and these people's divorce records, lawsuit records, but that's the kind of thing you really have to go there to do.
I was going to ask, you can't like tell someone, hey, I need this.
Yeah, I could write to them. They'll probably charge me something for it, and I probably would have to go out there, or they'll charge for the scan. Now and then I get lucky on that. There's another old-time serial killer I was researching in the New York legal archives. I found his clemency file, and they asked me, well, it'll cost this much to scan. I'm like, go for it. And then they ended up saying, we're going to waive the cost because this is the most interesting case we've seen all month. And that's a good feeling when that happens. But it's actually just in the case of things like probates and lawsuits, just finding it within the legal archives can be enough of a pain. And then usually it's not stored there, it's stored on site. So like in Chicago, if I request one of these records, it's a few weeks later before it actually comes in. So to get these would be more of an extended trip than I had time for given the constraints of the book anyway. But just about 2 months after Clara died, he married a woman who was working in the saloon. She was the woman working at the bar, and Hoch decided, this is the one for me, and started working behind the bar with her. This is a pattern he does all the time, saying, look, I can help with the housework, or look, I'll help you peel the potatoes. These were women whose previous husbands had done nothing like that. So
it's hot.
Immediately, immediately. So married this woman by the name of Maria Dess. Her husband, Frederick Dess, had died fairly recently. And it was really just about a week or so after, because there's the marriage record is dated from, let's see, the 22nd of March. He marries Maria.
1897.
Yeah, 1897. Then there's a newspaper article from April 14th of the same year. Schmidt got property which deserted one attaches. We'll just read this. It's only about a paragraph. Anna Maria Schmidt, whose former name was Des and who married Jacob Schmidt, a McMicken Avenue saloonist who has deserted her already within about 3 weeks, attached the real estate he derived from one of his former wives. In her plea, the abandoned wife said she loaned him $600, which was to be used by them for a joint trip to Europe, and forgot to leave her gold watch. And so she ended up going after the property herself. So within about 3 weeks, he had split. He told her, "I'm going to go to the train station to get us tickets. We're going to go to Germany together. I'll need you to draw out all your money from the bank, just as a loan. We're going to go pick up a whole lot of money from my father there, so you'll get it all back." And then after going to say he was buying the tickets, he never came back. And she must have figured out very quickly what had happened, because he would have left pretty early, and within a few weeks she'd already given up on him coming back and was going through legal paperwork. So, good for her.
Yeah, right. Well, also lucky for her that she wasn't in the ground.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah. So,
I wonder if there's a distinction as to what made him choose to murder one woman and not another.
It's usually how much property they had. Okay. And whether he could get them to draw it out of the bank. Okay. But yeah, there's a lot of the ones that he did kill, you wonder why didn't he just desert that person? Yeah. And in particular, like the last ones in Chicago, you kind of wonder. Because he only killed about a fourth of the wives that I know of. Only about a fourth. Right. And from this, he took off. There's already some, and then May of that year, May 18th, there's another one where the wedding is between a guy named Frederick Des and Barbara Cheston or Chuston. There's like 3 records of her, and it's different in every one. Okay. Seems to be spelled differently in everything. But there was a rumor years later during the inquest. We talked about this. The guy said, well, I heard a rumor that he married a woman in Philadelphia, but they let him go because a husband automatically owns a wife's property in that state, which was not actually the case. But who knows what some justice of the peace might have decided. Sure. So that was the rumor that he had, after leaving Maria, he had gone to Philadelphia and married somebody there and deserted her, and maybe even did a day or two in jail. And they never attached a name to this, but nowadays there's so many things that have been digitized. I was able to go digging. Hoch had this habit anyway of stealing his previous wife's ex-husband's names. Yeah. Like that Johann Hoch came from Carolyn's first one, the woman back in West Virginia. Then he would back to his own name using Jacob Schmidt, but Philadelphia wasn't far enough away. Right. So I guess he just picked up Frederick W. Des. And over the next year or so, there's this flurry of weddings using variations on that name, like Des or Dessa or Dessing, always Frederick W. So this one, we've got a couple of records about a woman named Barbara Chuston. I could not find anything else about her other than just these records. She was probably freshly in from the old country and might have just gone back right away. But there's no indication that he killed her or anything. There's just like a quick marriage listing in the paper. There's a little bit of wedding paperwork. So you got Frederick W. Des.
Yeah, what's scratched out, too?
Yeah, there's a little bit. It's scratched out. His occupation is given as saloon keeper, and that is scratched out here for some reason. He said, I used to own it. Has been married before. The marriage was dissolved on the death of the other about 2 years ago. Barbara Chuston, also death of the husband about 3 years ago, living in about the same age. He's given his birth date here as 1860, and it's usually between like 60 and 61. All right. He would fudge that a little bit. And she was born in 62, so about his same age or a little bit younger. Often he would marry people who were older than he was, and usually you hear about him marrying widows, middle-aged widows, but sometimes it actually was in this flurry of marriages that comes in the next year. Some of it was younger women who had never been married before. In this case, we don't really know much about Barbara. She's probably the one that he tried to rob and had him put briefly in jail, but there's just not enough data to know. But it's definitely, I'm confident that this is him. There weren't a lot of other Frederick W. Desses roaming around, and the timeline is just perfect for it.
No kidding. I mean, first of all, so in 1896, how many marriage certificates, or how many times did he get married?
1896, he married Martha Herfeld. He married Minnie Renka. He married, or Minnie Warnecki. Or she has so many names.
Can you imagine sitting through all those ceremonies too, just waiting, like, I just need the money.
Yeah. then Barbara in San Francisco, Clara in Ohio, then Maria was a few months later in Ohio.
In 97.
Yeah. And incidentally, talking about Minnie, May of 1897, the same month that Hoch was marrying this woman in Philadelphia, there is a marriage license on file in Chicago for a woman named Mary Rinka marrying one August Schmidt. Or Minnie Rinka. I think that might very well be her, but it's just about a common enough name, and her name is spelled so many different ways that I'm not totally sure. But right the same month back in Chicago, she was still at it too.
Oh, like cats.
So...
Ooh, that's hard to read.
Yeah, there was another one. There's marriage between a guy named Henry Hartman and Alice Meyer back in Chicago, or this was in Ohio someplace. It's in between Chicago and Ohio. It's about the place he would have been. It's the right time period. There was a rumor that he married someone under the name Henry Hartman. I don't think that this was him, but the timeline of the location works just about well enough that I at least kept the file. And eventually I'll put up like a whole thing about all of Hoch's various marriages and all of his rumored marriages, like a master list. Like when I did the H.H. Holmes book, the appendix has this big thing, a master list of known and suspected victims. I didn't have room for that in the Johann Hoch. We'll put it on the Patreon. So incidentally, good time to plug our Patreon.
Yes.
Patreon.com/TombSnoopers. We'll put up all of these pictures, all of these articles, all of these documents I'm talking about, pictures of the various wives when we have one, the wedding certificate, the marriage license, whatever I've got on this to back it up. And some of these articles are very, very interesting to read. So you can get all that supplemental material on patreon.com/TombSnoopers, as well as bonus content. I'll record some bonus episodes. You'll get early access to these episodes, all for one low monthly price. Now, how much would you pay?
But wait, there's more.
Yeah, so I don't know how many episodes we'll be doing about Johann Hoch. I'd expected this particular angle of the story to go a little bit further before we ran out of time, but we're getting right up to the half-an-hour mark, so I think we probably ought to cut it off before he goes through this whole spree of marriages in Chicago and New York over 1897. He's only just getting started at this point. So more to come here. I'm Adam Selzer.
I'm Patty Vasquez.
And this is Tomb Snoopers. As always, there's lots more data, including all the stuff we've talked about today, over at patreon.com/TombSnoopers, plus early access and a whole lot more.